Okay. Um, from Marble Falls, Texas, I give you our friend Laura B. Laura, take it away.
Thanks, Howard. Thanks, Kathy. And thanks everybody that's putting this meeting on. My name is Laura and I am an alcoholic. And truly by the grace of God, I've been sober since April the 6th of 1987. I'm extremely grateful for that today. And we are going to read maybe one of my most read, not necessarily my favorite, but perhaps the most read paragraph in this book for me over the last 10 or 15 years or so. We're at the top of page 63. And I'm gonna go ahead and read through it first, and then we'll come back and pick it apart. When we sincerely took such a position, all sorts of remarkable things followed. We had a new employer. Being all powerful, he provided what we needed if we kept close to him and performed his work well. Established on such a footing, we became less and less interested in ourselves, our little plans and designs. More and more, we became interested in seeing what we could contribute to life. As we felt new power flow in, as we enjoyed peace of mind, as we discovered we could face life successfully, as we became conscious of his presence, we began to lose our fear of today, tomorrow, or the hereafter. We were reborn. That is so much yummy goodness. I can't even tell you. It just settles my spirit just to read it. And I will tell you, having been sober for a couple of days in a row now, that I can attest 100,000,000,000%, if you're new, that everything that I just read is true. And it's not a hope that I have. It's not a theory of mine. It's not a theory of Alcoholics Anonymous's. It's my experience. I have 100% experienced every teeny tiny little bit of that paragraph. So let's back up a minute. We've just established in the previous few pages that the main problem of the alcoholic centers in his mind. And that the true nature of what's wrong with me is that I can't stand sober. The drinking is a solution for what's wrong with me. The problem is sobriety. It's how I feel in between drinking. I was sober every time I ever picked up a drink, right? And so it tells me the main problem is in my mind. And then I have a perception problem. And what is the nature of that perception problem? On the previous page, it says selfishness and self-centeredness is the root of what's wrong with me. I filter everything through how it's going to affect me, what I want, how it's going to affect what I want. Can I get everything is about how I feel and how I think and what I, right? That's the nature of the condition that I suffer from if I'm untreated. If I don't take action as outlined in this book to treat my untreated alcoholism, I live in this place where I am consumed with self and separated from you, my family, AA, God, all of it. I'm isolated from, I'm separated from. One of my heroes in Alcoholics Anonymous that just passed about a year ago is a man named Don Majors. And Don used to say that alcoholism was the perfect sociopath and had one job, right? Its only job was to separate me from. So if I can come to some understanding of that for myself, if I can concede to my innermost self that untreated, I am separated from the power that's necessary to keep me sober. And the way that power manifests in my life is through y'all. So I'm going to be separate from you. I'm going to be separate from God. You know what happens when I'm separate from you and God? I get thirsty. I get real itchy. Things start to, the world starts to feel a little bit like a Brillo pad. You know what I mean? It just becomes hard to be comfortable. And if all you have for me in Alcoholics Anonymous is don't drink and go to meetings, that Brillo pad is going to get so painful, that in spite of my desire to not drink today, I'm going to drink today. I have to have something of depth and weight, something with substance that will create a change, a psychic change sufficient to bring about recovery from alcoholism. And this is the very beginning of that, right? I have to concede that I'm powerless and my life is unmanageable. In step 2, I'm saying, you know what? I'm nuts. My brain's broken, right? I need a lot. That becomes apparent. And here we're coming up to step 3. This is all part of that third step. The third step is not just the prayer, right? It's all part of that third step. I do all of this to get here. And I can connect those dots here. And when I get to this paragraph, right before that, right? It says, this is the how and the why of it. First of all, we had to quit playing God. He's the director. We are his children. The agents. He is the father. We are his children. And then it says, when we sincerely took such a position, that's the position I have to take. I am not the director. The position I have to take that they're referencing in this paragraph is there is one who has all power. And that one is God, not Laura, right? No matter what I think, it periodically throughout the day. So when I sincerely take that position, I'm defeated. And it's not for me. So the word surrender came from Harry Tebow, right? The book talks about defeated, crushed by a self-imposed crisis, right? I'm licked, I'm beaten. And when I get defeated, right, when I'm crushed by this self that I live with, then I take this position of, okay, enough. Just enough. Go ahead, God. How much worse could it possibly be? And that really is the approach I took into this prayer the first time. I was not looking forward to living a surrendered life. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, oh, thank God I've quit drinking and now I can practice spiritual principles. Oh, this is going to be so fun. That is not what that looked like. What that looked like was I didn't have anything else to do. I was defeated by alcohol. It wasn't a surrender. I didn't make a choice. I don't make a choice today. The book says I've lost the power of choice and drink. I'm defeated. And when I'm defeated, I can take this position of enough of me and whatever God has, whatever. I'm not excited about it sometimes, but I mean, today I am, but I wasn't. So when I sincerely take this position, now we're going to get some promises and conditions. And one of my favorite book studies that I've ever done, that was the focus of the book study. We looked for promises and conditions because every promise in the book has a condition attached to it. There is something that is required of me, a position to take, an attitude to take, an action to take that is required of me before that promise. And so we start this paragraph of promises, third step promises, with a condition. First being, I got to take that position that I'm not God. That's the first condition. But once I do that, here's the promise. All sorts of remarkable things followed. We had a new employer. I didn't even know I was looking for one. You know what I mean? Okay. There's a promise. I have a new employer. Somebody needs to be running this deal, and it's not me. I'm a terrible business manager in my own business. Right? Somebody needs to be running the business. Being all powerful, that power, he, God, it, employer, creator, spirit of the universe, pick a phrase, provided what we needed. I don't have to go get it. That's a huge promise for me, that there is this power that will provide what I need. And then there's a condition. If we keep close to him and kept close to him and performed his work well. Right? So there's my condition. He will provide what I need, but I got to stay with you guys. And my experience has been that I don't necessarily have to perform his work well. My experience has been is that God's very gracious with me, extravagantly gracious with me, even when I'm not doing that great at performing his work. Another condition, established on such a footing. What footing? I'm not God. There is one, not me. We became less and less interested in ourselves, our little plans and designs. This is the opposite of selfishness and self-centeredness is the root of my problem. Now I'm growing. But you notice that it doesn't say all of a sudden we don't care about ourselves. We're not thinking of, it says we became less and less. I love that language. There's progress in that language. I am less interested in myself today than I was a year ago, or 5 or 10, right? Our little plans and designs, more and more, gradually, as I stay sober, as my relationship with this power increases, more and more, I become interested in seeing what I can contribute. I got to tell you, I don't know about anybody else, but I promise you, hand to God, I believe this to be true. I might have had 3 minutes of wondering what I could contribute to life prior to working the steps in Alcoholics Anonymous. That's not my nature. I don't think about what I can do for you. I think about what's going on, how it's going to affect me, what's the least amount of effort I can put in to get the most positive response from the most number of people. That's how I approach the planet, right? More and more, we became interested in seeing what we could contribute to life. As we felt new power flow in, as we enjoyed peace of mind, as we discovered we could face life successfully, each one of these things is incredible. As we became conscious of his presence, I'm awakening. I'm having an ongoing awake as I become conscious of his presence. We began to lose, It doesn't say, nope, we're not scared anymore. Fear's gone, move on, right? We began to lose our fear of today to tomorrow or the hereafter, but it does make a pretty strong statement right here. We were reborn, period. So I'll tell you a funny story, or maybe it's not funny, but I'll tell you funny. I think it's hilarious. Almost 15 years ago now. No, longer than that. Well, I don't know. I'm bad at math. In 2010, I was diagnosed with cancer and I was homesick. And it was the same year that the original manuscript came out. And so somebody, I couldn't do much of anything. And somebody gave me this giant, that book is enormous, right? And so somebody, a friend, gave me this book and said, here, you can entertain yourself. Because I would lay on the couch and plan my funeral because I just knew, you know how we are. And so instead of doing that, I got into this original manuscript book, and it occurred to me at about 3 o'clock in the morning one morning. And I went and did some research. And these promises are past tense. And the others are not. And so I got to pull in a little thread. Why are these promises past tense and the others are not? Drove me crazy. Now, this was before we had all this stuff online, right? I mean, the internet existed, but we didn't have these communities of sober people that you could just put up on Facebook and say, anybody know how come third step promise? That did not exist. So we started making phone. I asked another sponsee that I know that's a history junkie, and I said, any data here? We started calling archivists, and we got referred to an archivist in New York who referred us to an archivist in Cleveland who referred us to somebody in Akron, and it just became this whole thing. And there were lots of ideas that were tossed about, and I cannot verify with any certainty that this is accurate, right? This is the one that we were told by the last archivist that we spoke with, and it made the most sense to me. So I'm going with it. Feel free to do your own research, and then you can email me and tell me how full of it I am. But the last archivist that we spoke to in Ohio believed that these promises were written in the past tense because it was a singular event. The third step was not taken over and over and over and over. The third step was said and then done. And then you moved on. Right. And so this idea, and I'm not saying the prayer is not amazing, and I'm not saying don't pray it every day. I say it all the time because it settles my spirit. But the input of the archivist that we visited with was that this was past tense because when the book was written, the third step was a singular event. I'm going to get on my knees and I'm going to say this prayer and I'm going to get up. Now, I will tell you that when I got sober and began to go through the process of working the steps as they were outlined in the book, I got on my knees with a sponsor and said this prayer. And when I got up off the floor, the prayer that we'll cover next week, when I got up off the floor and stood up, my sponsor said, "Your life is no longer any of your business." I have to tell you, I was not comfortable with that statement. I was like, hold up. You didn't tell me that before. You know what I mean? Maybe I wouldn't have said that. But the deal is today, I'm delighted that my life is no longer any of my business because all of these promises in this paragraph at the top of the page happen for me on a daily basis. I continue to be less and less interested in my little plans and designs. I continue to become more and more interested in what I can contribute. I become more and more aware of his presence in my life. I experience more power flow in, more peace of mind. I have more confidence in that power to give me what I need to face life successfully today. Each day that I stay sober, each day that I stay reliant, these promises in particular, right, reassure me. I can read this and know I'm on the path, right? I'm keeping it between, I'm taking the action that keeps it between the ditches for me. And that action really is accessing this power. And sometimes I've got to do some other work to get the channel clean so I can access the power. But when I access that power, right, this is what continues to happen for me. These promises are a living, breathing thing in my life. The other thing that I'll share, and then I'll stop. This paragraph, for whatever reason, has been my most effective solution to financial insecurity. When it looks like, I'm not really sure how we're going to pay for groceries or pay for the rent or how we're going to get gas in the car to get to work. This is going to be pretty interesting, right? I come back here and I realize I don't work for those people. I have a new employer. And that, guess what? God's never been broke. Never run out of money. Not once ever in the history of the universe has God ever run out of money. Right? Being all powerful, he provides what I need when I what? There's the condition, right? Keep close to him. So I get in financial fear and I start thinking, oh my God, how am I going to make my car payment or whatever? And I pause and I come back here and I read this paragraph and I am reminded that I have an employer who provides for all of my needs. And my responsibility is not to sit at home and panic and figure out how to outcon, outmaneuver, outthink what to get what I want. My job is to be with you. If I kept close to him and performed his work well, what does that mean? When I come to you and I'm available for Alcoholics Anonymous, whatever Alcoholics Anonymous asks of me, all of my needs are met 1,000% of the time. I don't know how that works, right? But it gets me out of the way. If I'm doing 12-step work or I'm setting up for a meeting or I'm studying the book with a sponsee or answering the phones at the intergroup office, right? Any of those things, it leaves a space for my higher power to care for me. And that's what this is talking about. If I keep close to him and perform his work well, he provides for what I need. Right? So each time I read a paragraph that has these any promises in it, it's important for me to note what is the condition. Because when these things stop happening in my life, I can go back and look, right? Have I sincerely taken that position? Am I keeping close to him, right? And performing his work well, right? Am I established on that footing? I can go back and look at what the conditions are. And almost 100% of the time, right? It's because I've removed myself from the condition that is necessary to receive the grace and the peace and the power and right effectiveness, the principles, the guidance that comes through making these decisions, or this one decision. And I think I'm out of time. Am I out of time? I think I'm out of time. So thank you very much. I love this stuff. I'm done.